Hey guys, this is Thomas Edwards, creator of The Intentional Self and founder of the Professional Wingman. I want to welcome you to the Weekly Intention. The Weekly Intention shares personal stories of life, the trials of life, the tribulations and triumphs that come with it, and the gifts from the lessons that you can learn so you can apply it to your life with intention. So, I have a fun story that I want to share with you. Some of you guys may have heard this story before, but this goes back in 2008. Before I even get into the story, the reason why this is even coming up for me is my wife and I have been doing the KonMari method and tidying up our apartment. And so through this process, we're seeing so many things from our past that has led us to where we are today. And one of the things that I uncovered in the papers section was these logs that I had written down about my attempts to go out and meet people, interact with them, and learn to build confidence in a way that allows me to connect with others. And the stuff that I was writing down was insane. It was just like what I was wearing, where I was, where I positioned myself in that venue, the kind of conversations I had, how many people I talked to, who did I talk to. It was really, really detailed, and it just brought back so many memories. And I noticed that this was in alignment with something that I did back in the day, which was called 30 and 30, which basically put me going out to different bars, venues for 30 straight days. Now, why would I do such a thing? Well, back at the time, I had just graduated from college, and I moved back to Boston. I was living with my parents, and I didn't really have any friends. I mean, I had people that I went to high school with that I knew, but I didn't really connect with them that much, during my college years. And so I was seemingly on my own at a time looking for a job, couldn't really break into the video game industry, ended up working in hotels and worked the evening shift, working from 3 to 11. So even the people that I did know, when I reached out to them, they would say, dude, I'm going to bed. Or they wouldn't answer at all because they were already in bed because they were working a normal 9 to 5, if you will. And so it became important to me that I had to make new friends, or else I'd be living this life alone. And I also knew that I was very shy, at least that's what I thought at the time, and wasn't capable of meeting strangers, striking up conversations with strangers. So I was thinking of all these different ways I could learn how to do it. You can always go online and read, how do you start conversations with strangers? How do you connect with them? Even during that time I was single, so I was like, oh, well, how do I meet women? How do I learn to attract women or build connections with them? And all this reading, I learned very quickly that, reading and absorbing information doesn't do anything for you. You get a knowledge high, but what about the application of the information that you have acquired? That was the part that I needed to get over. So that's when 30 and 30 was born. I made a commitment to go out forcefully and be in position to meet other people and have a very simple strategy behind it. So the strategy was go to a venue, usually a bar. I would sit down or stand at the bar, make quick conversation with the bartender, and grab a drink. And whoever I sat down next to or stood next to, or whoever stood or sat down next to me, I would strike a conversation, just simply by saying, "Hey, how's your night going?" or introduce myself. It's very, very simple. And the reason why I kept this simple is because my previous thinking was I can just go to a venue and naturally just find people to talk to. And for many of you guys who are watching this, you guys know that that's not true. You don't just show up at a bar or you show up at a venue and all of a sudden you're talking to people. In fact, it's the complete opposite. You go there and you're probably standing in the corner, or you put yourself in a crowd, but you're not making any moves to make it happen. And as much as I was learning and reading and digesting material, my life wasn't changing. I knew all there was to talk to people. I knew all there was to say to start conversations, yet I still wasn't having conversations. Yet I still wasn't starting conversations. And I realized that this strategy, this thinking of trying to overcome this challenge is not working. And so I had to change my entire paradigm, how I saw everything as it pertained to actually applying these lessons and getting real, tangible experience, learning how to meet strangers and connect with them. So 30 and 30 was born. And I remember the first week, it was awful. I would get off work, I was still being, in my suit, or even during those days, I was also, a valet, and so I was wearing my valet outfit. I would into the restaurant or bar and sit there, and I tried saying, hey, how's it going? They'd say, oh, I'm good, and then nothing would happen. And then I'd try that again, and nothing would happen. And then I would proceed to spend the rest of my night having a drink or many drinks alone, maybe having brief chats with the bartender, but not really connecting with anyone. And that happened for several nights repeatedly, until there was one time where I started a conversation and went to an event that was actually hosted by Mashable in Boston. And as I was walking to the bar, I engaged someone in a conversation, and we had immediately hit it off. He was there by himself as well, and we kind of connected based on that, had a quick conversation, then it was over. And then I leveraged that and continued to talk to people. And what turned into just one conversation turned into many, with people that I still keep in touch to this day, nearly 11 years later. And that learning experience led me to go back out to meet other people. And when I met other people, I ended up discovering, or more appropriately said, stumbling upon the hospitality industry, where I was meeting bouncers and bartenders and servers and managers, and they were inviting me to their restaurants and bars. And instead of waiting in line, I was able to cut the line and meet other people. And it went on and on and on and on until by the end of the 30 days, there were quite a few places I could walk into and feel really comfortable. And I was able to connect with people and have really substantial relationships where, 30 days ago, these people were complete strangers. I didn't know how to connect with them. Yet I was doing this. And to go 30 days and have this full commitment was actually really powerful. And so doing that 30 and 30 experience, it forced me to do two things. One, it forced me to it started to allow me to break the habits that I was having at that time. So when I used to go into bars or restaurants or any social venue, I would run, grab a drink, think that drink was going to help me, or put myself in a corner and hope that someone would come over and talk to me. And I'm sure this sounds very relevant to a lot of you guys who are looking to meet new people and just don't really know how to go about doing that. Well, that was me, 11 years ago. And so it started to force me to break that habit. Like I was forcefully putting myself in position where I had to introduce myself to people, where I had to provoke conversation in some way. And when it started, it was not working, but eventually I kept at it and it started to break. The second thing it did was it forced me to think in ways that I couldn't see possible. Most of those times where I was reading and learning this information, absorbing the information, being essentially a sponge, I wasn't going out. I was still at home at my parents' house, feeling great that I now have this new information, but not feeling the sense of fulfillment that I truly desired that came with going out and actually implementing these strategies. So what it did is when I got out there, it forced me to see things, see different possibilities, see different things that I couldn't have seen just holed up in my room, just learning this material, right? Living vicariously through the material, or living vicariously through other people's stories from learning the material, which is what we do a lot. We absorb information and then we try to live vicariously through that information to think that we now know what to do, when in reality, we haven't done anything. We just read the material, but we haven't implemented it. We haven't tried to see if it actually is true. We only have the validation from someone else's stories. So I put myself in a position to see something that I didn't see possible. And when those two things came together, I slowly started to see results. Like it wasn't an overnight thing. And also keep in mind, guys, I went out for 30 nights straight. I was 20, I was just graduated from college, so I was 22 years old. I had that time, and I chose to use that time and dedicated it and committed myself to doing that. Could I do that today? Hell no. That's not possible. And for a lot of people, that is not possible. It is not possible for you to go out 30 nights straight. However, if you were to commit to yourself to any given amount of time to go out and do that, you're going to slowly see yourself breaking habits that you used to have. You're going to start to see different perspectives, different opportunities that you didn't think was possible because you didn't put yourself in that position. And that's the whole thing about overcoming challenges and overcoming problems that you currently have. You have to think differently. You have to change the way you're currently thinking in order to see a possible solution that you otherwise couldn't consider. It's like being in front of your house and you only seeing the front of your house and thinking that, wow, the front of my house looks amazing, the rest of the house must be great too. But then you're not seeing the behind, in the backyard where there might be some landscaping that needs to be done, or you're not seeing the sides of the house where maybe some vinyl siding needs to be added to or repaired, or you're not seeing the top of the house where maybe your roof needs to be repaired and there's a lot of damage there due to whatever conditions. So when you're only looking from one perspective, it's so easy to think, well, everything else must be great. And that or there might be fear around wanting to see what's around the corner. Or there might even be laziness. Maybe you might just be satisfied with what you already see and not want to see what else is around there because you don't want to do the work that might be necessary to make the sides and the top of the house as good as the front. I get it. But the lesson that I want you guys to learn from this 30 and 30 experience, this was really the lesson that I continue to share even though it was done almost 11 years ago, and I want to shape this in a quote by Albert Einstein that I heard earlier this week, which is, you can never solve a problem on the level which it was created. In other words, you can never solve a problem with the same thinking that created it. Your thinking led you to where you are now, good, bad, or worse. However, to move yourself ahead, to be bigger, to be better, to do more, to overcome challenges, obstacles, you're going to have to think differently, which basically requires you to change fundamentally elements of who you are, evolve, right? You're not necessarily becoming a different person, right? You're not changing your name or changing your persona. You're evolving a certain part of yourself that's going to allow you to see the things necessary to overcome that challenge and to solve that problem. So I'll use a modern day example of the 30 and 30 that I applied to my life today and how you guys can apply it too. So when I realized that I didn't want to spend my nights going out and working with clients in person in that way anymore, and I knew I wanted to focus more on taking care of myself, one of the first things that I had to learn to do was waking up early. I had to learn to wake up early. Now, early for me at that time was anywhere between 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning, which for some of you guys are probably rolling into work at this hour thinking, wow. Well, to give you an example of what life was like before, when I was working with clients in New York, I wasn't getting home until well after 4 o'clock in the morning. And so even to get, a typical 6 to 7 hours of sleep, which I wasn't most nights, I'd have to wake up 10, 11 a.m. and repeat this process over and over again. So for me to go up from, waking up at 10 to 11 o'clock in the morning to eventually like 8 to 9 was a significant difference. But even that wasn't, and I had to change my habits around that too, which was very tough. But last year I made a choice, because I was already waking up at 8 to 9, 9 a.m., but I had made a choice to wake up even earlier, 6:30 a.m. Now, the reason why I chose 6:30 a.m. is because typically my daughter wakes up at 7:30, so and my wife still sleeps. So this gives me an hour of uninterrupted time that I can truly focus on getting myself ready and inspired and motivated to tackle whatever day comes my way. But waking up at 6:30 was a very fundamental change. In order to get the 6 to 7 or maybe even 8 hours of sleep that I needed, I had to be asleep by at least 11:30, which means that I had to wind down around 10 o'clock, maybe even be in bed by then. I mean, this is fundamentally different than how I used to live my life, which was I'd be going out at 10 o'clock, whether it's to meet a client or see my friends. I wouldn't be getting home. Now living in LA, bars close at 1:30, 2 o'clock. I wouldn't be getting home until after 2. Or if the night was still going, I'd be getting home much later than that. There were nights where I even got home, really, really late. But what was happening was, when I had to fundamentally commit to the idea of 6:30 a.m., I now had to fundamentally change my thinking of how that was going to be possible. That meant that I couldn't be going out and be out that late. That meant that I had to take care of things in my day a lot sooner so I wouldn't have that stress to bring with me into bed. So many things had to fundamentally change, but I had to begin breaking some habits. All these things had to begin to break, and when they started to break, then it forced me to think, okay, how can I then how can I decide to make sure that I wake up at 6:30? So obviously setting an alarm, which is something that I hadn't done for over 5 years. You know, I only would set an alarm if I had to get up extremely early. This now has to be a routine of setting an alarm at 6:30. Then there was a new way of thinking of like, well, 6:30 is not something I'm going to be feeling great about getting up. How do I get myself up and out of bed? And even that was a new challenge within itself. When you decide to commit to doing something new for yourself that you know is going to improve your life, whether it's learning to socialize, learning to connect with people, going out and trying to create a romantic connection relationship. Maybe it's developing a new skill set that you can use in your professional career. Maybe it's waking up earlier. Maybe it's changing your fitness regimen. Maybe it's changing the way you eat. Whatever it is going to force you to break the habits you currently have, which has not helped you at this point in order to accomplish the goal that you do, but it's also going to force you to think differently. What are some things that you need to do differently in order to be a person who can meet this commitment, who can meet these targets that you've set for yourself? And so the question I have for you guys is, where in your love, lifestyle, leadership, and legacy do you find yourself solving a problem using the same thinking that led you to your present situation? In other words, you know, the thinking that you had, that you currently have, has led you to where you are, good or for worse. But where are you now stuck thinking that using that same thinking is going to help you overcome that hurdle, overcome that challenge? And then what is your intention to solve your problem with a new way of thinking to get out of the problem, to solve that problem? How are you going to now shift your thinking and create more possibilities of how you can solve that problem? You know, I think it's really important to understand that if you want to change your life, you have to think differently. You know, and when you think differently, you see more opportunities, you see more possibilities of how you can overcome those things. But the same thinking that you have that has you in your present situation is not going to be the thinking that's going to get you out of it. And you have to understand that. If you don't, then you're going to continue to be stuck. And so in order to get out of that place of feeling stuck or feeling isolated or feeling alone, you have to change that thinking and to look around the house and see what other possibilities could there be to create a better situation for yourself. So these are the things that I talk about with my clients all the time. And so when it comes to their journey, there's a lot of obstacles that they face and they have to think differently. And I help them think from a different perspective. And I remember when I first started my business, that was the idea. I didn't want to position myself as like an expert. I just want to be someone whose position is providing a different perspective that could, in fact, change your life. And that is essentially what I do. So if it's something you're interested in having a conversation about where you're at right now, what challenges are there, why you feel stuck, and how you can overcome them, what new perspectives are going to be necessary for you to get out of these problems and have someone support you in that, let's get on the phone and talk about it. You can go to thomasedwardsjr.com/talk and we'll connect. So, hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Until the next time, this is Thomas Edwards saying, keep it simple, be amazing, and live intentionally.